California has the highest cost of living in the nation. The state's prices are 11% higher than the national average. We were actually out to dinner here in Nashville last night. We met a couple from California. Yeah. They moved out of California because they couldn't afford the rent or even to buy a home and also start a family.
Yeah, we've had hundreds of thousands of people move in California the last 2-3 years. We've seen population growth. As you know, we moved from 6th to the 4th largest economy in the world, and we dominate now in every key industry, from AI, quantum, robotics. We dominate in ag. We dominate forestry.
But people are struggling to afford things like your mom was.
I'm just trying to impress upon you, I'm like you. I'm no better than you. You know, I'm a 960 SAT guy. You've never seen me read a speech because I cannot read a speech.
Welcome back. Commentators now say these gaffes are going to hit Governor Gavin Newsom's run for the White House. First, that was CNN confronting him about the affordability crisis in California. And then that was Governor Newsom telling black voters in Georgia he's like them. He can't read, that he scores low on the SAT tests. Nicki Minaj, black voters now hammering Newsom. Minaj saying Newsom even slowed down his speech to talk to black voters in Atlanta, Georgia. Joining us now from Chicago Red, P-Rae Easley. It's good to see you again, P-Rae. You know, what's your thoughts on this? Senator Tim Scott tweeted, Gavin Newsom, black Americans are not your low bar. We've built empires, created movements, outworked, out-hustled, and outsmarted people like you. P-Rae, can you talk to us? What is the strategy about trying to be relatable by talking to people like they're dumb?
So the Democrats love to jive with the tribe. That's what I call it. They come, they change their cadence, they change their accent, and then they try to talk about the lowest rungs of society. So Hillary carried hot sauce in her purse. We had the governor of New York who said that we don't know what computers are. And now Gavin Newsom says, if you want to relate to black people, tell them you can't read. As if he is not the governor of California, which means that if he knows that there are literacy gaps in our community, he should be pushing for programs to close them rather than using them as moments to connect with us. It's not fair, but again, this is the party of the Confederacy, people. This is exactly who they are. This is who they've always been. They don't respect us, and they only see us as a charity case.
Yeah, Nicki Minaj is going off about this. She's really angry. Let's get your reaction to Gavin Newsom here. He says he's a speed reader, that he can read fast, that he read a nearly 300-page book in less than 2 hours. Watch.
You've written a hell of a book, and I don't say that lightly. I went through it in a quick hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And trust me, I don't read very fast, but it reads at an unbelievable pace. It's so well written. And of course, it's so familiar because I felt a little bit adjacent to so much of the subject matter, but it's 18 chapters. It's an impressive piece of work, 263 or so pages, 2 critical sections.
He's a speed reader? What do you think?
Again, so when he's talking to white people, he talks about how well he reads, how well he can go through critical thinking and, you know, really playing up his academics. But when he goes down to the South and speaks to black people, it's I cannot read a speech, but you can read a 300-page book in an hour and a half. Again, these people do not respect us. This is why we're telling everyone, put on your gym shoes, tie them up really tight, because we're running to the right. We're getting away from the people who do not respect us. They think that they own us as they did pre-emancipation, and it's time for us to show them that it's time to go. They don't have anything for us. We have all of these people in power who love to stand on our weaknesses but never give us solutions for them. They only use them to pander to us, and that, again, keeps certain segments of our group low because they don't care about raising them up. Similarly to Joe Biden, who I affectionately call Jim Crow Joe, going down to Morehouse and telling those gentlemen, you know that America doesn't love you. We don't have anything for you, but you're the president of the United States, the vice president, someone who was a senator for over 40 years. So again, if they know that these problems exist, rather than pandering to us, they should come up with solutions to fix them.
What do you make of
full Americans?
What do you make of Newsom? He's trying to fire back. He knows this is bad for him. He knows it's going to hit this White House race. He's firing back on Twitter over President Trump, accused of posting racist images of the Obamas. The president said he made a mistake. He didn't watch the entire clip before posting it. What do you make of that?
I think that he should have said, I'm sorry, you know, guys, I didn't mean to offend you. If my words were offensive, please don't take it that way. Instead, he said, well, Donald Trump is racist too, which means that he is taking ownership of his very offensive words, and we cannot accept that. He will never be the president of the United States of America because he doesn't even have the courage to say sorry to a 40 million swath of the society who he has offended.
Candidate for office, P-Rae Easley out of Chicago. Good to see you again. Come back.